Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. We are back again with another top 5 video. This time we're going to be talking about top 5 science champions, and boy, this was hard to make. Before we get to the actual listings of the champions, in my personal opinion, that is what I want to reiterate here, that these are my objective personal evaluations of champion rankings. They are heavily swayed by my personal experiences, my fights, what I have seen, my opinion. Obviously, I am trying to be as objective as I can. However, it is inevitable if a person single-handedly makes a list such as this. There will be a lot of personal influences, personal biases, personal experience involved in that. And that being said, this was probably the hardest one to make so far. I had clear spots number 1 and 2, and that does mean that I think spot number 1 is without a doubt, I'm going to put it right up, it's Quake, and spot number 2 also, in my opinion, has quite significant difference in between spots number 3 till 7. That's right, spots number 3 till 7 realistically are very tight, and they are definitely neck and neck in my personal opinion. And no matter in which order I rank these champions in particular, I think I will have a lot of people disagreeing with me and discussing alternate placements, let's call it like that. But such as these lists are, they will never please everybody in my opinion. And that being said, again, since science class is so stacked and I really didn't want to leave out too many great champions, I will go from 5th place to 1st place, and then at the end, a bit quicker, we're going to talk about spots number 6 to 10 as well. That being said, let's start with spot number 5. I'm going to give spot number 5 to Thing. I'm going to be honest, I fully expect him to drop down to spot number 6. With at least to spot number 6 by the time I make these at the end of the year. Now, Thing is obviously fantastic and he's great, and he does obviously significantly increase his damage output offensively with champion synergy. Even without champion synergy, he is still extremely capable champion, which is what I will try to showcase in one of my upcoming videos. There's going to be like rank 3 Thing gameplay with no synergies at all whatsoever, with no champion cheese, just kind of like him in his full essence. And Thing has a lot of great things going for him. Namely, one of the main things I absolutely love about Thing is his signature ability. Now, my 6-star Thing is only 670, but still it provides significant amount of damage reduction. It's 60% plus 1% for each rock stack, so typically there would be 50, so 75% to 80% damage reduction. Still significant damage reduction. Obviously at Sig 200, that's even kind of like tankier. But all in all, obviously there are a lot of things that he can do, and the things that I appreciate about the Thing most are the little bits of utility. The fact that he's immune to Nullify, therefore he's immune to Buffet and stuff like that. The fact that he cannot be armor broken, or the fact that he's shock immune, therefore he can fight Dr. Doom very safely. He can deal with EMP modification, even though those are passive shocks, so on and so forth. And also the fact that you can play Thing in such a way where you can always keep these 15 to 20 rock stacks on you active pretty much, and then you will always have this safety net of your unstoppable activating whenever you mess up, and you have like a lot of control in the fight. And yeah, I think Thing is a fantastic champion. Unfortunately, I think Thing would be far better option for many people if his champion synergy would be with somebody else. If it would be with actually like a usable, popular champion, and then it would kind of like be able to be used much more frequently. Because currently, if you want to use Thing with champion, you need to give up at least the 1 spot to a completely useless champion, which is rarely worth it these days. And that is kind of fairly big downside in my opinion. But obviously when you do go with the champion synergy and when things do go right, you have fantastic time. There are several showcases. I have showcased Thing in Labyrinth against SheHulk and Old Man Logan, and quite few other videos featuring Thing on my channel, and he can be absolutely devastating. But yes, next video I want to make with the Thing is going to be one without like any synergies, purely just his own ability. That being said, we can move on to spot number 4, and spot number 4 in this case is going to go to Void. Now, Void has slid down a bit because I also think that his irrelevance has been slightly diminished intentionally by Kabam. We have had far more characters that shrug off debuffs these days. We have had far more characters, or more specifically nodes, that prevent you from altering regeneration rates. That basically at best let you heal block and could possibly place degeneration on you. So slowly but surely, by design from Kabam, Void is kind of like being phased out, just because he was extremely present for a long period of time in kind of like the metagame, and he was answer to a lot of problems, and he still is, and he still does provide a lot of solutions. His Incinerate immunity, as always, is super handy. He is very useful for a lot of the new Alliance War stuff as well, and I have never been the biggest fan of actually playing Void, but I do like his design, where you can slow play plenty of fights and let just the intimidating presence debuffs kind of like do that job. You can completely control any power gain effects and so on and so forth. There are a lot of crazy good things Void can do, and for most part, he's always, in my opinion, going to be a relevant champion. There is very little Kabam can do to fully get rid of this guy, if you know what I mean. Because unless Kabam specifically always kind of like keeps it back of their head that Void is a champion that needs to be countered, he always seems to find ways how to enter in the metagame. Additionally, things like health gain and things like power gain will always be significant issues players how to face and players how to answer. And without specific abilities that counter Void's debuffs or Void in general, he is always pretty much one of the best options, especially when it comes to kind of like power gain nodes. So yeah, I think Void is extremely solid. I think Void is great. He's one of the champions I'm always kind of putting off taking to rank 5, but I do know I will likely have to do it at some point. And this point as well, though, I have Void as a 6-star, so I am really hoping to dupe him and take him to rank 2 eventually instead of ranking up my 5-star. And yeah, he is one of those kind of like duty rank ups where everybody needs a Void. That's why he's so good. Everybody needs a Void, in my opinion. But now we're gonna move on to spot number 3, and spot number 3 is gonna go to Human Torch somewhat reluctantly. Now, I do understand his complete surge of popularity largely by the perfect PR he gets in Abyss right now, because he's one of, if not the only kind of champion from the 4 Horsemen that can actually solo his fights whenever he's getting brought in relatively frequently. Like, put him up against Mephisto, he can solo. Mordos, he can solo. An average Mystic champion, he can actually solo. Even Aegon, as good as he is, typically takes a couple of revives, unless you're like boosted through the teeth and have like a rank 3 Aegon or something. But Human Torch, even as like a rank 5 5-star, can solo his fights, and the damage you deal by end of it, especially against champions like Mephisto and Mr. Sinister, is quite insane. When it comes to applications, obviously he's not an AQ champion really. I haven't seen him get used much in AQ. In Act 6, in later chapters, I found more use for him. Not too significant use. He's still, in my opinion, largely somewhat a niche champion where you need to look for some specific conditions. But I think he has proved that he's here in metagame to stay, and he's not going to be going away as pretty much the best option for plenty of fights against many Mystic champions. Whenever you see clapback nodes, he's an absolutely insane option. Whenever you see freezer burns or many different kind of like situations, he can be completely devastating. And the problem with Human Torch is, well, A, he takes a lot of block damage. That is going to be addressed in Act 6 though, so hopefully going on we're not going to have to keep that block proficiency so high in our regard and champion tankiness. Like in Abyss, for instance. Abyss is perfect for Human Torch because there's nothing that prevents him from parry stunning, dropping heavy attacks, and he's not eating a lot of damage in block. In Act 6, it's much harder to utilize him because there are far more nodes that typically mess either with stun durations, or champions are flat out stun immune, or there are many champions who can shrug off these stun debuffs. And then additionally there is this increased block damage, so it was significantly harder to use him in Act 6, but now that Act 6 attack values are getting reduced, I think he's going to see even increased use in there as well. I think he has a solid spot in AW as well, because obviously any defense typically involves quite a large number of Mystic champions these days, and yeah, he's fantastic for those fights as well. And he's here to stay. He's not an everyday kind of like go-to questing champion. He's a champion you put on your team in case you are going up against that like Mystic champion, or I don't know, Magneto, or in case there is that kind of like good matchup for him. In an average matchup when opponent doesn't have energy damage, he's quite mediocre actually. But just because of how high ceiling he has in his perfect matchup and how much he can do in those conditions, I think he's a champion to be reckoned with. And initially, again, I'll be first to admit, I didn't value him high. I still looked at him as a niche champion, but perhaps it was my fault that I failed to realize the top end ceiling of his abilities. Perhaps it was because there weren't too many places where he actually shined as much as he can in Abyss, and obviously now he is on top of everybody's wish list pretty much. So we are gonna give Human Torch top 3 spot currently. That might change in future depending on what future content comes out and what kind of meta trends we see. Obviously everything's possible, but currently he is desirable and he is a great option for a lot of different things in the game when the circumstances align perfectly for him. And I still wish that people would realize about Human Torch, that he is a situational champ, and he, for instance, would not be a great first rank 5 choice. That he's not a champion for everyday kind of like questing in Uncollected, so on and so forth. He's a champion that's very great to have, similar to Void, for when situation calls up on, and for when he gets those great matchups. And that is not going to be majority of the time. That is not even going to be 30% of the fights you typically take. It's going to be likely about 20-15% of the fights you go up against. Human Torch can shine completely. But yeah, anyway, so we're going to move on to spot number 2. And spot number 2 is going to go to Captain America Infinity War. And this is what I said where I mentioned that spots basically number 3 to 7 are very tightly packed. Literally any champions could have ended up anywhere. Champion who I'm going to place in spot number 7 could have ended up in place of Human Torch in 3rd spot, and Human Torch could have ended up in 6th. That is how close they are, and I was really struggling to place them. The first 2 champions, however, I did not struggle at all whatsoever. That's how I started. I wrote down number 1, Quake, obviously, and number 2, Captain America Infinity War, because that is how relevant, that is how important this guy is. I even have an Abyss run with this guy where he's one of the MVPs for me because of his heal reversal and in general solid damage output per hit. He might not be the hardest hit champion in the game, but his playstyle of parry heavy, getting those furies and then dropping big level 2s also allow him to do a lot of damage in a fight just because he doesn't spam his hits. He takes his time, and that in exchange makes him quite suitable in Abyss of Legends. Additionally to that, he's an absolute tank which has carried so many people through a lot of lanes in Act 6. He's very viable for a lot of AQ stuff. He's very viable in Alliance War as one of the kind of like more solid unstoppable counters. And the whole flexibility and versatility of the champion is close to unprecedented. The champion who's this good and is being able to customize to what exactly you need from him is in my opinion, an absolutely great piece of design. And he is not a new champion anymore, but he has, similarly to Hyperion, if anything, gotten better with time, because there are more and more circumstances where he does great. His tankiness lets him kind of like have a lot more scruffy playstyle. When you take a lot of hits and block, you don't always have to be perfect, plus there's glancing obviously. Then he has his skill signature ability where you are able to shrug off all and any debuffs and need be, and then you can inflict obviously petrify, armor break, weakness. All of that comes together and just saves the day in so many occasions. And there are so many smaller things that work in favor for him as well. For instance, the fact that his heavy attack is so quick that entire heavy attack lands within a parry stand. That means that you can heavy safely in the comfort of the parry stand, which means you don't have to worry about evade, which means you don't have to worry about anything else happening, because the heavy attack is going to be over by the time parry stand expires. And he's never been like the flashiest champion. He's never been the champion I'm always the most excited to play with, but he has always been up there as one of the potential options whenever I'm strategizing what team I'm going to bring in for X, Y, or Z path. Additionally, I quite like using him with suicides. Yes, he's not immune to anything, but his playstyle of just going for parry heavy, and pretty much any fight or majority of the fights, if you're running suicide, is going to be over by the time you drop 2 heavy attacks, means you're just going to eat 1 recall max, is also quite useful. And obviously then there's aggression, regeneration, cheese, and everything else. So yeah, all in all, I think he is definitely a stud of science class, and he is a solid second place champion, and he's second only because the first spot belongs to somebody very special. And first spot obviously belongs to Quake. Now, I'll be absolutely honest, I'm getting somewhat worried for Quake, because I fully realize that there is a very good chance that Quake is going to get a nerf in terms of just not being released as a 6-star champion. Similarly to how Scarlet Witch just faded in oblivion because we never got her as a 5-star champion, which means she never was able to stand up to the power creep that started with 5-star rank 4s and 5-star rank 5s then. And in Act 6 you can't even bring in any Scarlet Witch at all whatsoever, and now Scarlet Witch is just non-existent in the metagame just by the fact that she's not available as a 5 or 6-star champion. Now with Quake, Quake's design lets her deal with any fight basically. Yeah, the smaller the rank Quake has, she can still do pretty much exactly all of the same fights. Basically what I'm trying to say is a 4-star Quake can do mainly all of the same fights a rank 5-star Quake could do. And the only difference is the length of the fight. The fight itself remains exactly the same. You don't worry about taking like more block damage because ideally you evade everything, and you do not have to play 4-star Quake any differently from a 5-star Quake. Just because of that aspect, I think Quake will handle herself well as a 5-star up until the time when 6-star rank 4s and 6-star rank 5s come out. When we are going to get to 6-star rank 4s and the power creep will kind of like between 5-stars and 6-stars is going to get even wider, Quake will definitely struggle to keep up. For now though, I think Quake is quite safe even if she is being held back as a 6-star character because of the nature of how she plays. If you want to hear me talking up Quake, you're probably solid couple of hours discussing how great is Quake. And there are several videos. If you type in Quake KT1, there should be about a dozen videos that pop up. But basically, yeah, I think the amount of issues she can deal with is unprecedented, and the best quality of Quake is that she can bring down pretty much any fight to a baseline difficulty level. What I mean by that is that with Quake, it doesn't really matter whether you're fighting some really tricky opponent with plus 7,000 power gain, with whatever else, and whatever else abilities that fight would be unrealistic with any other champion, or you're doing an arena fight. The Quake fight is always going to have exactly the same difficulty level, which cannot be set by literally any other champion in the game, where the more abilities, the trickier the nodes is, the fight itself fundamentally changes. For instance, if you have to deal with Mixmaster, you cannot throw 2 of the same attacks in a row. With Quake, it doesn't care, because you're not going to be attacking opponent, you don't care if they try to evade. And there are countless examples like that, where you simply do not care about opponent's abilities, either because of concussion, or either because of the fact that you never actually try to land a hit on them. And that makes her unique in itself, and has also proven to be basically a winning ticket in MCOC. Once you kind of learn to play Quake well, things are gonna get a lot easier for you, trust me. Additionally, I absolutely love running Quake with Suicide Masteries for increased amount of damage. Yes, she doesn't have any immunities, however, she doesn't really need them because, again, you're taking like no block damage and you're not throwing special attacks, so it's just the initial small amount of damage, and she can still pretty much cover the entire map, which is also great and fantastic. Now, all that being said, this video is already stretching out, I can feel it. We're going to go to spot number 6, and spot number 6 is going to go to Red Guardian. And As I said, I fully actually expect Red Guardian to replace Thing or somebody else in top 5, because Red Guardian has a lot of fantastic abilities such as slow and access to stun and ability to block unblockable attacks, so on and so forth. And most importantly, that uniqueness of never being able to gain a buff is surely going to become more and more handy as more and more crazy nodes are popping up. Now, the reason why I didn't place him as 5th or 4th currently is just because how extremely new he is, and we have yet to kind of like see his full potential day-to-day uses. Obviously, I have brought him in a limited amount of quests, but once more people get their hands on this guy and can take him to max sig, and we can actually see more gameplay and more kind of like things that he can do, fully expect his spot to go up. I personally would kind of like already be semi-confident in putting him in spot number 5, but if I did that, I also feel that many people who might not have Red Guardian or who might not ever have had a chance to use this guy would not quite understand and get it why. So I kind of want to wait a little bit and be cautious, but there is definitely an absolute ton of potential. His slow is extremely easy to maintain, that increased power gain from opponent. Having that slow active is just great additional kind of like bit where it makes sure that you can keep that power gain up in every single fight. The one kind of criticism I would have about this guy would be that his sabotage, or how the debuff is called, forgot, fracture, trauma debuff doesn't last quite long enough. If trauma debuff had like additional 2 seconds on it, I think it would be absolutely wonderful, and he could have much realistic potential for a huge damage ramp up. But even as is, those level 2s deliver significant amount of damage, and if you manage to double up on them, then pretty much any fight is finished extremely shortly within a couple of level 2s and a couple of heavy attacks. And yeah, he's another champion that I'm definitely interested in showcasing more on my channel, because I find him extremely interesting and extremely valuable and unique, which is exactly what I look for in champion. Therefore, he's in spot number 6. Now, spot number 7 is SheHulk, and again, as I said, spot number 7 to spot number 3 are neck and neck. And SheHulk is insane. She's so versatile, she's so useful. Obviously, she did take a little bit of a tumble with that heavy change, and it did take quite a bit of getting used to and the customization to her, and it's different to play her now. However, all that being said, there's still so much she can do, and it's so handy, and I absolutely love her, and I love the fact that I have her ranked up. Her damage ramp up potential is insane. She was one of the MVPs for my Horsemanless Abyss run as well. She put in such a great work, even against matchups where I didn't really expect her to, like Hyperion for instance. Because of her sound mechanic, I never had problems with managing Hyperion's power, and because that's how she refreshed her Furies effectively, I had never any worries about Furies expiring, and it was just a great fight in general. There is a lot of SheHulk can do, but SheHulk is a champion where you need to put some trust into her, especially because initial phase of SheHulk's fight can be a little bit chaotic and can maybe not give you the biggest amount of confidence, because she doesn't hit all that hard up until she gets like 4 or 5 Furies. Then she starts putting out decent damage numbers. Obviously, opponents might not cooperate with you when you have like 1 or 2 Fury buffs active, and then you can struggle sometimes getting opponents through those special attacks and so forth. So initial kind of like bit ramp up with SheHulk is kind of like the most annoying bit, but once you actually get like 4 or 5 Furies, then the damage numbers are looking juicy, then the fight's under control, and you kind of like get this inner confidence that you know exactly what AI is going to do, you know exactly what's going to happen, you know what you have to do, and she just answers a lot of issues. So again, she pretty much is done well close to, as far as I can say, 4th, 3rd position in science class, because again, all of these are extremely compressed. So before you enter your keyboard warrior mode, please understand that somebody has to be 3rd, somebody has to be 7th, and this was decided by a split hair of a difference, I suppose you can say. And yeah, spot number 8 is gonna go immediately to another video, Mr. Fantastic. Again, Mr. Fantastic, I think, is a quite significantly underestimated as a champion because he has quite a lot of great qualities and very quirky and interesting utilities. I do think he's somewhat let down by his animation style and by his heavy attack, where it's hard to chain it in the corner because sometimes you push back too far and doesn't have big of a reach, which is very ironic because, you know, stretchy guy. And again, you can't really punish opponents' heavy attacks by your own heavy attack. An additional problem that I really don't like with Mr. Fantastic is that he has two different power levels. One is with his Fantastic Force energies. He's a beast. He's a real beast, and obviously there are worse champions to synergize with than the Fantastic Four, especially Thing and Human Torch. Not that there's anything wrong with the Invisible Woman, but the fact that you have to condense pretty much majority of your team to science champions who have like very specific ability kits is not always possible or practical. And then by default, if you use Mr. Fantastic without a full Fantastic Four synergy, he's gonna seem underwhelming. But what people need to remember is that when you are playing him without his Fantastic Four synergies, he's a champion that is not gonna get anywhere quickly, but he will get where you're going. That increased power gain with careful study debuffs, not to mention the added amount of safety and the damage reduction, just super handy. You neutralize opponent's power gains, you neutralize opponent's regen, you gain a ton of power, they gain hardly any power. He has increased resistances, and there's a lot of great things that Mr. Fantastic has going on for him. But I think the bigger problem why people might not appreciate him as much as he deserves is just the fact that his initial fight speed is quite low, and he does require you that ramp up of dropping multiple level 2s to double and triple up on your debuffs, so and so forth. So it is a bit of a grind to use him. But he's still very, very easy to use and a great champion to have, and I absolutely love that I maxed him out. Number 9 is SheHulk. Nothing much to say there. Absolutely hate the guy, but and I think he completely sucks. However, I think that Face Me is incredibly valuable ability, still extremely unique in the game, and purely because of Face Me, he's actually a usable and valuable champion. If you take away Face Me, he's an absolute meme, in my opinion. But Face Me is that powerful that actually makes Hulk Ragnarok as a meta champion to deal with all sorts of fun and interactive passive damage and passive degeneration. So, hey, I hate the champion, but he's alright. And spot number 10, again, I'm just gonna pull on, you decide in between Wasp. Wasp's fantastic. I think she's severely underrated as a champion. Red Hulk. I think Red Hulk is elegance and simplicity, doesn't get buffed, doesn't rely on debuffs, has additional extra damage based on his incinerate charges, and is an absolute tank. Obviously a lot of great synergies. He's just a very, very solid, hard-hitting champion, in my opinion, that is absolutely great. And the last champion that I think is probably the most underrated Spider character, which is Spider-Gwen. She's absolutely fantastic. I think she might actually increase her relevance in meta because she has very easy access to Enderweight, which will counter Sasquatch beautifully. And I am myself actually considering taking her to rank 5, partially because of that reason, partially just because I really, really like her playstyle. The access to slow with Enderweight, that mega stun that also disables opponent's power, and yeah, there's just a lot of great stuff, and I really do like Spider-Gwen. So yeah, those would be kind of like the champions competing for spot number 10. If I had to pick one, oh man, it's hard, but I'd probably go with 10 to Spider-Gwen and 11 to Wasp maybe. But yeah, anyways, that is it for today's super long video. I hope you guys enjoyed it though. If you did, then hit that like button. Here's going to be some Baby Yoda for you. Just a quick reminder, the last class that we have not covered yet is also going to be extremely hard to place, and that is going to be Mutant class. I'll try to do that tomorrow or day after. But all things being said and done, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya!